Yeah, and now we're going to go to the next portion of this session, which is how to give students another attempt and accommodations. So that's going to go, Rob Obermeyer is going to go over that portion. It's all yours, Rob.
Okay, I'm gonna share again. Okay, and you should be seeing my Blackboard screen again, and you'll see, excuse me, I'm in my lessons area in week 3, and I've got a test 3 here. And I'm just going to go into edit test options. And I think based on the questions we've had and some discussion we had, I'm going to go a little bit more than just accommodations and giving people another attempt, and take a little time and just talk about different options that you have here in the options. Uh, so just remember that you have 2 ways of providing information. You can do a description here in Blackboard, and then in your test, you also have a description area. And you have the option before they begin the test to show the test description as well as the description you do here. So if you give the same information here and in the test, you don't have to do that. We always recommend have them do the test within Blackboard itself. Don't have it open another window. That can be problematic if, for example, you're using HonorLock and have used some of those. Make the test available after you create it and control it by using other means, and we'll talk about that in a moment. You can add an announcement about the test if you like by clicking yes. You can allow multiple attempts to the test if you like. Most of the time we don't use this, but if you wanted people to have more than one attempt for a particular exam, you could. Here you set which attempt is going to be the score. If you allowed multiple attempts, do you want to take their highest score, their lowest score, the first, or an average of their graded attempts? And then we come to forced completion. And forced completion is a very strong option. It really locks the test down. If students go outside of the test environment, if they click away from it, it's gonna submit the test. If their internet connection burps for too long, it's gonna submit the test. So basically anything that interrupts their interaction with the test, it's gonna submit the test. And that's why we say you may want to think very strongly about not using it, because it is going to give you more times where you have to go in, look at the submission of a student, and determine should they get another attempt. You can set a timer. If you set the timer here and you set it to on, at the end of 90 minutes, no matter what the student does, it's going to submit the test. So if you turn it off, at the end of 90 minutes, it's going to record that that student went over the 90 minutes, but it's going to allow them to complete the test whenever they do it. So they could come back theoretically a day later and do the test, but it's going to tell you they did the test after the 90 minutes. Again, here, if you make the test available, we recommend use the display after and the display until to make the test available to students. So set your display after and your display until. Using a password, you'll see Honor Lock automatically puts a password in here. Usually starts with HL dash. If Honor Lock puts a password here, don't touch it, just leave it alone. You could potentially require a password to take the test, but it's really not needed, because in order to get into Blackboard, our students have to identify themselves and come in. We're going to come back and talk about test exceptions, test availability exceptions here in a moment. Due date, if you set a due date, one, it's going to show up in calendar, and two, it's going to record whether a student completed the test by the due date or not. If you click do not allow students to start the test if the due date is passed, when you go to give an exception that is past the due date, you have to remember to turn this off. Otherwise, the student won't get access to the test. Normally, we want to include the test in the grade center. As we come down, someone was asking about this area. So when do you want to show the test results? Well, you can show it after a student submission. You can give them a one-time view. You can do it on a specific date. You can do it after the due date. So if you give them a week to take it and somebody takes it early, excuse me, they may have to wait until after the due date. Available after the end date, after attempts are graded. So after all the attempts are graded, students will be able to see. Okay. If I come here and I turn all of these off, students are going to be able to see their score. If I click here, they're going to be able to see their score per question. So for every question, did they get it right or did they get it wrong? If I click here, they're going to see all the answers that were possible. If I click here, they're going to see the correct answer. And if I click here, and I'm sorry, they're going to see what they submitted. And these are all additive. So if I don't want them to see all answers, I don't click this box. If I want them to see the correct answer, I click this box. If I want them to see their answer, I click this box. I can provide them feedback. I can provide feedback and let them see the feedback. I can show incorrect questions. So I can show them which the question that were marked incorrectly here, okay? I know there's a lot of questions about this, so, and I'm not seeing the chat, so Vicente, you may need to help me.
No questions in the chat at the moment, Rob.
Okay.
I have a question. Can I ask?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so could you show me, I want students to be able to see their grade after they take their test, but I don't want them to see any questions, correct, incorrect, nothing.
So all you would do is you would select when do you want them to see their grade, and you would leave all of this blank.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then
so again,
ever see if they want to connect with me and see what questions that I get wrong, I could handle that in a virtual meeting with them.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, because you could go into their grade center remember, you can go into the grade center and view their attempt, and you could, in a meeting like this, just show them the attempt, show them which questions and which answers
Right.
and that kind of thing. So,
Right, and I've done that before, so.
yeah,
Oh, good, thank you. I just wanted to, I didn't want them to see anything.
okay.
Yes.
So test presentation. And here, in talking to faculty, there's some options here. All at once, that's really like if you put a piece of paper as a test in front of a student in the classroom, that's all at once. And they're able to go and say, okay, I can answer question 1, question 2, I need to think about, I'm going to go to question 3, I'm going to go to question 5, then I'm going to come back to question 2, and they can answer that way. One at a time shows the first question, then the third question, then the second question, then the third question, and so on. But it shows them individually. Prohibit backtracking, to me, is something you really have to think about whether you have to use it. Because normally in a test, you'd be able to answer question 1 and go to question 2 and go, I need to think about that. Go to 3, answer that. Go to 4, answer that. Go to 6, answer that. And come back to the ones you needed to think about. So what prohibit backtracking does is prevent a student from doing that. If they skip a question, they're not going to be able to go back to it. Or if they answer a question and then they're thinking about it and going, you know what, that wasn't right, I need to go back to question 2. They're not going to be able to do that. Randomized questions is something in online learning we use a lot, because what randomized question does, if you have 30 questions in your test, it's going to scramble the presentation of those questions to each student. So no student will get the same, if you have 15 or 20 students, no student is going to get the same presentation of the test. They're going to get the test questions in different order. So that's something to think about, is if you really want to help yourself, that's one that we've used for years in presenting tests online. If you happen to use forced completion, click all at once, leave everything else alone, because forced completion really takes care of all of those. So let's go back up and let's talk about, all right, go ahead. Is there any questions about those?
Oh,
Okay.
shit. Classes.
If I want to give a student accommodation, that is giving the student more time to take
Yes.
the test, is there one place I can do it, or do I have to do it on each of the tests?
You have to do it on each of the tests, and it's done in test availability exceptions.
Okay.
And you do that by clicking add user or group. And now I'm going to go find a student. Let's say Luke, who we were using before, needs more time. So I'm going to click on Luke. I'm going to click here. And you'll see here, I get some options. If normally every student would have a single attempt, if, as we had done before, I eliminated an attempt for him, he has no attempts now, I can leave that alone. If I knew he was having internet problems, I might, without telling him, give him a couple of attempts. I can make that any number I like, but just put a couple of attempts in here just in case he has a problem again, because it makes it easy. I can set the timer. I can set auto submit if I wanted to. And now I can come in here and I can set the dates. So this is two things. So if my normal time was 90 minutes and say I wanted to make sure Luke got more, I can set that to 120 minutes. Okay. And now I can set the dates that it may be, if I want to use the same dates as up here, I don't have to do anything. But if I want to change the dates, or if it's after the due date, I can come in here and set the dates as I want them, dates and time as I want them, okay? If I turn on force completion, let me find that again. You'll see here, force completion is now an option, okay? If a student is having internet issues, they got bounced from the test, I may, and I'm using force completion, I may want to turn it off for that student because, again, force completion, if the internet starts to have issues, it'll submit the test. So I may want to turn that off there, okay? One thing we talked about in the earlier session, and I'll mention it in this session, if someone is having honor lock issues and you go into the grade center, you'll see they don't even have an attempt. And that's where they need to go back into honor lock, and then click on the honor lock chat and have honor lock help them with that issue and to resolve it. But again, you have complete control. You can give people, you can set this up prior to the test if you need to give someone more time. If you need to give them a broader range of completion, you can do that. You can set different parameters for them. You can take force completion off if you decided to use it. Again, if you use force completion, understand even without force completion, you're going to have some students who probably have an issue, who may get kicked out and may need another attempt. And this is where you'd set that attempt up for them so they could take it.
I have a question.
Sure.
If you give him 2 tries, but he has no problems and completes it, what keeps him from going in and doing it again?
Nothing really, but you're going to see
Not
the
like
2
I'll
attempts.
complete it again.
You're going to see both attempts in his grade center.
Okay.
And you can decide, you know what, I'm taking the first one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So again, it's, it's a judgment call. It's me saying, you know what, I can see Luke is having internet problems. I'm not using honor lock. I'm seeing he's having internet problems. I really want him to get this done. I'm not going to tell him I'm giving him 2 attempts. So if he gets the first attempt done, he's probably going to run away from the test. But it just makes it easier. If he comes back and said, I had another problem, you can say, okay, what happened? All right, make sure, clear your browser history, close and open the browser, make sure you have nothing else open, go back in again and take it,
I have another question.
Yep.
Randomize. Can you allow a student to backtrack?
Randomize? Yes, because the test is being presented to them and the system knows I presented this question first, for that student. So yes, they can backtrack.
Yeah, I have another question. You say that can keep them from going off the test, but I have a lot of data they need throughout the test, like a periodic table and other data that they have to keep going to. Can they do that and not be considered going outside the test?
As long, well, There are two answers to that. One is, as long as you don't use forced completion, they can go outside the test, okay, and look at things, and that's fine. And what we're saying is, set your timer and set it short enough. If you don't want them doing that, set it short enough that they need to answer the questions fairly rapidly. If you're using Honor Lock, in Honor Lock, there are settings where you can set it that they can't, and I apologize, I forget the particular item, browser lock. If you want them to be able to go outside, you're better off not using browser lock. But if you do use browser lock, then you have to whitelist the particular places they're going to go. So if you have a number of places that they need to go.
If I included as part of the test all that data in the table, they wouldn't have to go outside the test, but they would have to move around in it to go see it.
Then what I would do is I would make sure all at once so they can move up and down in the test and see it. And I would leave it like that, and I would not do forced completion. You could randomize the questions and however you wanted to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions that, I have to admit, when I first came and started using Blackboard, this was an area that I had to spend a lot of time understanding exactly all of these options and how they worked and what they did when you were in a test. Okay. So not hearing any, I'm going to stop sharing.
Oh, sorry.
And go ahead.
No, I was writing when you went into the accommodation, but I saw text availability exceptions, but I don't know where you clicked before you got there.
Hold on, let me share my screen again. So what I did, if I go back to test 3, let me go this way, lessons, week 3. You start out here within lessons. I'm in lessons. I'm in my week 3 folder. Okay. I'm here, and I go to edit test options.
Edit test options, okay.
Okay. And then I scroll down to test availability exceptions.
Oh, okay.
And again, I'll say, if you set test availability exceptions, and it's outside your due date, in other words, the dates you set go beyond this due date, make sure to uncheck this box.
Okay.
Or if you give someone another attempt, make sure to uncheck this box. A lot of times, even I'll do it where I give somebody another attempt and I forget to do that. And then they say, I still can't get there. And I have to go back in and go, oh, I know exactly what it is. I didn't do this.
Robert?
Thank you, it's clear.
Yes.
Robert, can I ask a question? If a student has to take the test late, and then will that be a problem if you check that box, do not allow students to start the test if the due date has passed?
Yes, that's what I'm saying, is if they are taking it late beyond the due date, you have to uncheck that box. If you have it originally checked,
so
what it's going to do.
Give the exception, so I have to uncheck that, right?
Right.
Okay.
Even if you give the exception, it goes beyond the due date, you have to uncheck that box, or Blackboard's going to say, no, you told me no student can take it after the due date.
Yeah, just want to confirm. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
Rob, I did get a question in MS Teams about is there a way to make an assessment available to only one specific student without having the rest of the class be able to access that assessment or see that link to that assessment.
Yes.
If you wanna go over that, or I can go over it. It's up to you.
No, I can do it. I can do it. So the way I would handle that, I would make the test available to students, come down here, and I would say a display until date, either today at this time or earlier. So, you know, if today is the 14th, I might set this to January 13th. Then I would come down here to test availability exceptions, and I would add the student in, set the student up, make sure this is unchecked, hit submit, and now the only student who can get to that is the student I put in test availability exceptions. Okay, so again, what I would do is I'd go up, I'd make the test available, I'd set a display until date that's earlier than my present date and time, and I'd come and I'd set the test availability exceptions for that student, make sure this is unchecked.
So the student with exception can see the link, but other students cannot see the link. Is that right?
Right,
Correct.
right.
Okay.
Well, they'll see the link, but they can't get into it. Yeah, no, you're right. They can't see the link. They can't see it. Yeah. Only the student that has access will see the link. And you, again, as we showed you, you can go as the instructor up to student view and test that out. You can go in, because you're not that student, you can go into that, go to student view, go into that folder, and you should not see the link.
Yeah, I understand that, you know, other student cannot see it. I don't want to confirm that the student with exception actually can see it, because the day is before the day the student will take the test. You said until.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. They will see it. They will
Okay.
see it because you've set it up in the test availability exceptions.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
I got another question. Basically, what's the purpose of the password option? So basically, that's just another restriction option that you can set for an assessment, where you can set a password for the assessment, and when students click on it, it'll prompt them to enter a password in order for them to be able to access that assessment. So the only way that would work is if you were to share the passwords with students on the day that they're supposed to complete the assessment. So let's say you know, you want your students to complete that assessment today, starting at 3 p.m. Well, your students are going to have to access that test at that time, and you're going to have to share that password with them. That's the only way that they would be able to access the assessment, or you would have to meet with them virtually and share that share that password with them individually, so they can enter it themselves and access it. So that's basically the purpose of the password option. If you're using HonorLock, whenever you enable HonorLock on your assessment, it'll generate that password for you, but you do not share that password with your students. That's just for HonorLock itself, for an internal use. But that's one of the reasons, or one of the uses for the password. Any other questions?
Yeah, hello, this is Laura Chen. I have a question about the randomized test.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, randomized test, I mean, basically, for example, I have like 10 questions for a test, right? And so it's only just randomized order of those 10 questions, or I could like say, for example, I have like a 30 questions pool. And so when the students open the test, he can just, I mean, the system automatically choose 10 questions out of those 30 questions. So in that ways, so I mean, every student like take the test might get different questions. You know what I mean?
Correct. Yep. So there's two answers there. So if you just create an assessment with only a set number of questions, let's say you create an assessment with only 10 questions and you select randomized questions, it'll randomize those 10 questions for each student that accesses that assessment. So they would get different versions of the questions that would display on their screen. Now, if you use a question pool, that actually makes it a lot better because now, like you stated, if you have a question pool of 30 questions and you select randomized question, it would randomize. It would select questions from the pool, and each student would have a different version. So it would randomize the question pool for you as well.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so you would tell us, I want 10, I want students to answer 10 of the 30, and we would set it up from the pool that they would get, every student would get 10, but every student would get 10 from the full 30. So it would be different for different students.
Oh, so for that, I have to contact you to let you set up, or I can do it on the Blackboard myself.
No,
You
you can do
can.
it yourself as well.
Yep, you can.
Okay.
How do you set it up? I know how to set up for the system to randomize the entire test, either for the whole group and then for each student if they go in again to make another attempt. I know how to do that. How do I do it with a pool and then selection from the pool? Like if I have 30 and I want each person to take 10 randomized questions. So how do I set it up?
Well, first you would need to upload the question pool. So if you're using a publisher and the publisher has question pools for your specific subject, you would upload that question pool into Blackboard, or you can share that with us and we can upload it for you. And then when you're creating your assessment for that course, you'll be able to access, you can select the option called question set, and you would select the pool that you want to use and the amount of questions that you want displayed on the screen. Um,
And the first time you do it, it's probably good if we get together and do it together. We can walk you through doing it. Um, it's a number of steps, but once you do it once, you're kind of, oh, I understand.
yeah, and just send us an email to MercerOnline at mccc.edu so we can schedule a meeting with you and talk you through the process.